and welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's amazing to see so many people join us for this special conversation with our friend, Mondiant Dogon, author of Those We Throw Away Are Diamonds, A Refugee's Search for Home. My name is Nadia Siddiqui. I'm a global connector at the humanitarian organization Alight. We're full of gratitude to be hosting this event with Mondiant, who spent time in a refugee camp in Rwanda where Alight provides services. Alight works with 3.5 million people in 19 countries around the world. When people are displaced from their homes, countries, or lives, Alight provides basic essentials such as water, shelter, and medical care. But we also know that these essentials don't make a full life. A life should be filled with joy, connection, and purpose. And our aim is to help displaced people build meaningful and fulfilling lives. So today we'll be together for the next hour, and we are recording. You'll hear directly from Mondiant, and then at the end there should be time for some questions. And if you have any questions, they can go into the chat feature, and our team is going to be watching for those. So now I'm going to hand it over to another Alight friend, Carla Holt. Carla is a constant advocate for the work that Alight does in the humanitarian space. She's traveled with us, including to Rwanda, with Mondiant, and will be moderating today's conversation. Carla, as you know from our earlier calls with Mondiant, this is a tremendous honor for all of us to share this space with him and be part of Mondiant's global family and community. And what a meaningful way to bring the two of you back together.
We are so grateful. I can speak for both of us, but especially for myself. I am so honored. Thank you so much, Nadia. Welcome to everyone. This is an amazing conversation. Mondiant, I cannot wait to just dive into this conversation and also this beautiful book. I am truly transformed by what you have committed to Paige. And I just want to start though with an introduction, if you will, to just get everyone up to speed about your amazing background, all you have persevered through and all you have accomplished throughout your life. You are a human rights activist, a refugee advocate, and an incredible friend to Alight. You, as a young child, your family fled your home in the Democratic Republic of Congo to seek refuge in Gihembe refugee camp, where Alight currently offers services. You then spent 20 plus years living in Rwanda before moving to New York City to pursue your studies at NYU. I've had the pleasure, of course, of traveling in Rwanda with you, and I really appreciated that opportunity, especially with Alight alongside us, as we both know they do such amazing work on the ground, recognizing the dignity of people who are displaced truly to no fault of their own. It is so special to have this opportunity to be with you today. And this book, again, I just want to say it is truly transformative. And I just thank you again for your courage in bringing your story to light and sharing with it in such an impressive form. I want to get straight to the first question. I talked a little bit about your bio, your background, that which you might read in a resume, but I want to hear in your words. Can you share a little bit about your journey? What led you to the point you're at today?
So thank you so much, Carla, for the wonderful and amazing introduction. Before I answer the first question, I want to say thank you so much to Alight. I knew Alight since I was almost like 7, 8 years old. So in refugee camp in Gihembe. So since I was 8 until now, we're still very close as a family. So Alight is no longer an organization for me. Alight is my family, like any other family members I have. So when I count, I also account Alight as my family member. So thank you so much, Alight, for bringing these friends and family. I want to also say thank you to everybody who participate or who attend the meeting. So thank you so much for coming. When I was in Gihembe, the place where I grew up, I never had this opportunity to share or celebrate this achievement with people, friends, because our success or achievement in refugee camp was like secret. So we did really well, but it kept. So our achievement was always inside the refugee camp, not going outside. So I want to also say thank you so much to all people I grew up in refugee camp in Gihembe, who some of them are still attending from refugee camp in Rwanda. So they are on the call. I want to say thank you so much. You never know. Future holds a lot of things for you guys, and I still had friends like Emmanuel and other people here in America who also lived in Gihembe. You guys, you made me the person I am today, and I'm incredibly humbled to be, part of the journey we've been together. So thank you so much. So for the first question, my journey, I was born in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in one of the amazing, beautiful places naturally. So I was born in the Bikenke, the village was called Bikenke. I had brothers, sisters, siblings, auntie, extended and nucleus family. Because my dad had married before, so I had many half brothers and half sisters. So sometimes our home was like New York City, like Times Square, New York City. We were super busy, but we were very happy. We didn't have electricity, we didn't have running water, but our life was amazing. The people were old enough. They took turns into looking after cows, going into the farms, and children like us, our job was to observe our grandmother's wisdom, like fables, stories, sitting around the fire. So life was amazing before, but that didn't last long. So in 1995, the Rwandan genocide against Tutsi in Rwanda spilled over into Congo. And these Hutu power, Hutu militia, they came to Congo, they started targeting people speaking Rwanda, especially Tutsis. So since then, that was the last time, 1995 was the last time I saw my home. And that was the last time I was called somebody I had where I belong. Since 1996, I fled and going to Rwanda, and I lived in different refugee camps in Rwanda, but the one I spent most of my life in was Gihembe. Gihembe is a refugee camp located in northern province of Rwanda. So I arrived in Gihembe in December of 1997. So that's where I started my school. That's where I started everything. That's where I realized that life was completely different from where I grew up. So that's where I went to school and I graduated. So, but in refugee camp, the life in refugee camps was totally different from the life I knew before I fled the country. I went to school in refugee camp where we were eligible to study till 9th grade. And 9th grade, you stop. If you don't find a donor or somebody who can sponsor you, you drop out of school. So I got lucky. I managed to go to high school outside of a refugee camp where I studied literature. And being in that school outside of refugee camp, it gave me the opportunity to interact and to know how other people beside my fellow refugees lived. So I started liking how to read the books, and I also got lucky. I worked so hard and I got scholarship to go to University of Rwanda, the best university in the country. But when I went there to University of Rwanda, I found out I was not eligible for financial aid. So because I was a refugee, they said, the university told me that I need to go back. I'm not eligible for financial aid. So I went back in refugee camp, but I took all the handout and syllabus. So I took them in refugee camp for the first year of my college in 2012. And I never attended any class. I only went back to Kigali for exams and came back to Gihembe. So that was the struggle. And after I graduated in 2016, but before I graduated, there was a guy, a young American lady who used to live in Texas. She came to do research in Gihembe, and he met me. I was interpreter, and said, "Dogon, what are you doing?" I told her all the stories, and she said, "Dogon, I want to try all my best to connect you to a nonprofit organization based in Oregon, Portland." So that's how I got connected. From my second year of university, I was sponsored by an organization called These Numbers Have Faces that support young refugees in Rwanda. So I graduated in 2016. So 2017, I also got the opportunity to meet the former CEO of AOL, Tim Armstrong. He gave me the opportunity, he gave me a stepping stone to come to America for school, and I graduated in 2019. And here I am. I live in New York City, one of the best cities on the planet, from refugee camp Gihembe.
It is so impressive. Congratulations for all you've accomplished. I think that until people read this book, they won't fully grasp just how much you overcame to achieve these milestones, particularly related to education. I would note that you truly saw the full spectrum of humanity, the worst in humanity, but also some of the best in humanity. And your courage to find the joy in that best is really remarkable. I want to read just an excerpt from your book, if I may, just to give people an idea of how lyrical and how poetic you again committed your story to the page. So this is in the very beginning, and it perhaps addresses the purpose of your book. Do not keep them away. They need justice to live, at least. Do not close your doors. They want to get a little rest. The land has many sinners. The realm needs many priests to beg Almighty God for refugees and migrants' peace. Those we throw away are diamonds. In 2013, when I was still living in Rwanda's Gahembe refugee camp, one of tens of thousands of Congolese Tutsis who had been in the camp since 1997 with little prospect of leaving, to keep my soul from dying, I started writing a book. My book began with a poem, and that poem had a refrain. Each stanza, one about memories of my childhood in rural Eastern Congo, another about the massacres that tore us from that home, others about the resilience of refugees all around the world, ended with a single line. Those we throw away are diamonds. We are thousands of youth on this mountain, I wrote. We are conquerors. We quell earthquakes. We are the Congolese refugees who have lived in the Gahembe refugee camp for years. Don't throw us away. We were weaned from school due to funds, the poem continues. It's a burden, it's a border against our bright future. Bear this in mind. We no longer play for fun. Those we throw away are diamonds. Diamonds to a Congolese person bring to mind colonialism, theft, and slavery. Refugees make others think of war, poverty, famine. In my writing, I wanted to wipe everything clean. I wanted readers to know that the real wealth in Congo isn't what was hidden in the ground, exploited by white colonizers. Congo is full of real people. Many of them, like me, have been forced from their homes because of violence and live without a way to have their voices heard. Every refugee from Rwanda to Syria to Guatemala has a story. Every refugee is a diamond. For years, I wrote whenever I could a sentence at night in my home that I shared with my family in Gahembe, a paragraph between classes in my dorm at the Rwandan high school I fought to get into at the University of Rwanda in Kigali when I could afford to be there. When it rained and soaked my pages, I started again. And years later, when someone lent me a laptop, I typed so slowly that I worried it would take me decades to finish. But I wrote because my life and the lives of all refugees around me were a series of untold stories, unheard by a world that too quickly forgot about us. I want to just say I have chills reading that. And I guarantee that our audience today, all those who have kindly joined us, will have chills reading it as well. And I want to thank you again for your poetry, your talent, and again, your courage in sharing your story. You tackled it a little bit in that introduction, but I want to ask you again, Mondiant, what made you first decide to start writing this beautiful book, A Refugee Search for Home, Those We Throw Away Are Diamonds? What was really in your heart to want you to bring your story really to the world?
Carla, thank you so much. I think, to be honest with you, to be such a great author or writer, it was kind of a miracle to me. I remember when you live in refugee camp, when you stay in refugee camp, during the World Refugee Day or other small event in refugee camp organized by international organization or the UN. So young people participated in a small event for poetry. So for me, I participated in poetry. And for me, I didn't expect to be, this huge or known writer or author for me, I want to win a small prizes like pen or a book given by the UNICEF or maybe by Allied, because I remember one time Allied gave me the soccer ball because my poem was really great. So that's how I started. And when I went to college, I started writing. I was one of the best writer or the poet at the University of Rwanda. I was writing that time in French. And I say, okay, I'm one of the luckiest few people who were lucky to go to college. And like my family, nobody went to school. I say, okay, and many people in refugee camp, they didn't have a chance to go to school, to college. What can I do? I know everybody in refugee camp is very silent. Nobody want to share stories of what they've been through, because with all 99% of people in my back home, my fellow refugees, they didn't go to school. Especially when I say that, I mean old people, people who are older than me. So I started writing when I was at college at University of Rwanda. I say, what can I do? I got lucky to go to the best university of Rwanda. What can I do to support people I left behind? I say, I want to try on my best. I want to make sure I break this silence. I want to help people talk. So I moved from refugee camp to another camp to collect stories of war and rape. Particularly, these stories were told by women, and they held these stories like, it was not easy for me to uproot or to make sure to build this trust between me and these women, because some of them, they never shared their stories, even they never told their family members. So it was like uprooting an ancient tree to gather stories. So I built the trust, and we built this kind of bond. So they allow me. So I wrote those stories and I collect them. I moved from Gihembe, I went to Nyabiheke, I went to Kiziba, I went to Mahama, I went to Kigeme, with all these refugee camps in Rwanda. And after that, I say, okay, now I collected a lot of stories for women, particularly it was about war and rape. And I said, what can I do next? So I started writing the book because I realized that my life and the lives of people around me were a series of untold stories. So, and I knew that there were a lot of people who have never been to Africa or who have never been in refugee camp, who don't have an idea of what the refugee camp look like. So that's how I started writing the book. That's how I started writing Those We Throw Away, because I want to share, to tell the stories and break that kind of silence that killed my fellow refugees.
I have to ask just briefly, as you're collecting those stories and as you translated them, what kept you going? What kept your heart safe as you absorbed some of their pain and helped to share their stories, recognizing that your story is also one that includes heartbreak?
Yeah, I think when I started, the reason why I knew that as somebody who studied literature at high school, I read a lot of books, I read a lot of articles, and I knew that it can help, if I knew through sharing stories instead of keeping quiet. When you share your story, it helps it helps you to heal. So that's the reason why I reached out to everybody, especially those people I knew they have, this tough past experience. So I want to listen to them and show them empathy and love. And these are the most important things that this community needs.
Amazing. A gift of healing and sharing their story. Well, the book, of course, is again the courageous collection of your personal stories, but you speak a lot about the family, the friends, the supporters you met along the way, and the heroes truly that you met along the way. Is there anyone in particular you'd like to talk about even right now, just someone you'd like to share with us right now?
Yeah, I do have many, but I want to share a little bit about one of the closest story, that personal closest story that's very, very close to me. And yeah, there are so many, as I said, like these friends from Gihembe who are on the call, and other people like Allied who invested and trusted and believed in us while everybody else think otherwise. So about the closest story to me is when I was almost 5 years old. I was living in Mudende refugee camp in the west of Rwanda. It was in 1997. I was very young with my best friends Celestine and Patrick on the same age, but Patrick was stronger than us, though we were in the same age. So he dreamed to be a pilot one day. I dreamed to be a teacher, and Celestine dreamed to be an engineer. So we had different dreams in refugee camp. So, and I remember every night we played hide and seek. We played hide and seek, and life was beautiful. And one morning, one night, the massacre, the people attacked, the refugee camp Mondiant was attacked. And because we were living in a very tiny refugee, in a very tiny tent, so we children slept together, and most the parents didn't sleep. So they leaned on the bags for they let the children to sleep. So most of the time we slept naked, and because we didn't have much, even enough clothes. So my friend Patrick and Celestine, when we were sleeping, we had bombs and people start screaming in refugee camp. So we get outside of the tent, and nobody was there. Our parents was already left, and we also ran outside of the tent in the storm of violence. We saw bullets, bombs, grenades battered around us, and we kept running. So when we were running the refugee camp, it was night, but it looked like a daytime because of the refugee camp was like there was a blaze everywhere. And when we ran, Patrick, because he was stronger than us, he said, "No, we don't need to run that way. Let's go back." So we zigzagged in refugee camp, and one of the guy, we saw people running behind us with machete and spiked clubs. So we kept running. After running, we realized that if we keep running, we will meet other people, because everywhere in every corner of refugee camp, people were screaming. And we tried to come back, and we decided, I told them, I'm the one who told them, let's go back to the tent. So to be honest, I told them that we can hide under the bags or under the clothes. So, but to be honest, for me, I thought that I would meet my mom there in the tent. That's why I told them to go back to where in our tent. So we came back, and when I got to the front of the tent, I saw my grandma dying, bleeding seriously, with the huge gash of machete. And there was, behind her, there was my auntie Florence, also sleeping there with also gash in her head. And Mom, I moved my grandmother's shoulder. I wanted to make sure that she was dead, and she was dead. So Auntie Florence, she looked very, very tired. She looked up at me and said, she moved us away, say, run. So we didn't know that there were killers in the tent. So we didn't want to go far away from where they were. We want to make sure what happened to them. So we went nearby the latrine across the tent. So nearby the tent so we hid in the behind the latrine. So from the spot nearby behind the latrine, we saw how my grandma was laying there, and my auntie Florence was also, but she was still alive. And we saw like 4 men came outside of the tent with machete and also guns and spiked the club. And she asked my auntie Florence, so who were you talking to? She said no. And I remember when we came to Rwanda, Florence was only 12 years old. She became wiser and old enough for her ages. So I say, I was talking to nobody. Say, no, if you tell us people you were talking to, we're not gonna kill you. So I say, no, I was talking to nobody. We were few feet from where they were standing. We were hiding behind the latrine. So, and I saw the guy, they took the machete. So they swung their machete high in the air, and they brought it down and cut my grandmother's head. And also they went to my auntie Florence. So 4 of them raped her and after killed her. So the reason why I tell you guys this story is because Florence, they didn't want to give them our way. So she didn't want us to be killed. She saved us. She sacrificed her life to us. And I think that's the personal story. And that's one of the reasons why I started this program of also listening to the women and these stories, because I'm a man, but I know that the women are one of the strongest human beings I've ever met. All my way, women have played a huge role, including my mom and other women out there. So that's the personal story. That's whenever I sleep, whenever I do real well, whenever I achieve something big, I think people like those, like Florence, like also somebody like my grandma.
I think we just need to have a moment to recognize the gravity of what you just described, Mondiant. And I am so sorry you experienced that. And it's an atrocity that the world should never forget. And I want to thank you again for helping to make sure that the world does not forget that, and that you are bringing your story to light. It is absolutely important. Also important is your advocacy. You speak of forever refugees. What do you feel are the most pressing issues for those in refugee camps today?
I think that's the most important things. I also wrote the book. I wrote the book because I saw like a young man, like somebody who was born in a Gihema refugee camp. Now he's 25 years old and he doesn't see hope in the future. He doesn't see any hope inside. So those people, these forever refugees, are the people, in a refugee camp, when the refugee camp is established, so the UN and other international communities, they take it as a temporary place where, the refugees stay before they go back to their country. So, but it became more than that. Instead of being temporary, it became permanent. So a lot of people, they're stuck in these places, and when you spend there like 10 years or 5 years, the world starts forgetting you. They start welcoming other people like you who are still new. They want to make sure that those new people, they adapt to the situation they have never been exposed to. So that's why when you're kind of forever refugee, you are kind of forgotten. But yeah, I think the most pressing issue these people face is because, they stay there, no hope for future. Still, I'm forever refugee. I came as international student in America and also as a refugee. So I remember when I was coming to America, I got stuck to every airport. Still, the TSA at the airport, because my document, he said the refugee travel document. So, and I got stuck, I got extra screen to make sure that maybe I'm not terrorist or somebody else. So with all that's one of the problem. Another problem, these people, when you're young and you stay there in refugee camp, you only see white tents from January to December, from 25 years or 20 or 30 years, you have this kind of traumatic disorder where you say, no hope for future. And that's why you see a lot of young people, they kill themselves. There is a high number of suicide in refugee camps, especially in these refugee camps that stay there for so long. So the most pressing issue in these refugee camp is that no education, no hope for future, and nothing else besides sitting around and seeing, waiting the death to take you tomorrow.
It is an overwhelming challenge, no question, somehow. And again, it is to your immense credit that you overcame that challenge, navigated in order to continue to study. And the tragedies you just described just prove how much you had to overcome to do that. And it's absolutely remarkable. Today, it almost seems like you're paying it forward in the most profound and powerful way. You advocate for and currently financially support youth education in Rwanda. We want to hear a little bit more about your own education experience, but also your current dedication to creating these educational opportunities that, as you just described, Mondiant, are just a vehicle to tomorrow for many of these young adults and children.
So thank you so much. I think education in refugee camp was not easy. I think some of us, like people who are on the call from back home, when we started, as I said, we started education refugee camp, and instead we didn't have these form of classrooms. Instead of chairs, we had stones, and instead of blackboard, we had long papers where two students held up. And when they start complaining, the teachers replaced those students with others. So we didn't have blackboard, we didn't have chairs. So the education, the quality of education of that kind of student that those students will acquire would be very different from someone else who have these formal classroom and all school resources. So the education refugee camp was completely poor, because some of us here on the call, I know people who've been teachers in Gihembe. So we arranged ourselves to get documents. We didn't have curriculum. So we are the one, especially refugee communities, organize themselves. People who have maybe books they took from Congo, he brought in with those kind of things. That's how we grew up. That's how we started our education before the government of Rwanda stepped in and other organizations like Jesuit Refugee Service. So my education was really hard. And when I graduated in 9th grade, it was not easy to get somebody to sponsor me to finish my high school. So luckily I dropped out one semester, and a friend of my mom who used to live in Kigali, I took the phone number, I asked her phone number, I called somebody, say, I no longer go to school, I dropped out of school because of fund. And she said, Dogon, I don't have money to send you to school, but I have one semester for you. So I went to the school in east of the country in Rwanda. And when I got there, it was not easy. I walked all day from Gihembe. I think some people from the call, they know I went to the school in east nearby Nyabiheke refugee camp, which from Gihembe I walked. I didn't have transport. I took my mattress on my head and my backpack on my back, and I walked 2 days to get to the school. And even when I came back, because I didn't want to share my story with my classmates, I didn't want anybody to know that I was a refugee because of this bad connotation people have about refugees. I made sure that I left the class at the school. When the school closed, I made sure I left the school after everybody else left. So I kept that way. And even in the school, as I mentioned on the introduction, at university for the first year, I never attended any class or lecture. I only went back for exams. And I graduated till I came here to America. But when I was back home, education was not easy. So that's why when I came to America in 2017, so in 2018, I had a paid internship at a company called AOL. It is a tech company. So I was paid, and the money I made, little money I made, I sent back home. I established an organization called Heal of Broken Souls. So Heal of Broken Souls were the stories of women, those women I told you before, where I shared these, you can see on the screen. So these women are the people I met along my journey when I was back there before I came to America. So when I came to America, I decided to invest in them. For the money I made from the internship, I sent them, I worked with the UN and the refugee executives. So they brought business idea. I gave them the money and they started businesses. So, and also tried to reach out with the UN. I worked with the UN where I tried to make sure I got one student from every refugee camp to send to higher education. So now I have five refugee students and almost 55. That's the school I went to. So whenever I go back to home, I make sure I visit these young people, these young refugees whom I see bright future in them. So I now have more than 55 women in different refugee camps. And that's the program, Heal of Broken Souls. Few months ago, I turned those broken souls into Mondiant initiative. So that's the organization we are doing partnership with Allied. So we are investing in these people, women, and education in refugee camps in Rwanda.
Well, you certainly inspire as you are making this difference. And it is, again, just so touching. And it's also inspiring to the point that a lot of people listening right now and people who need to listen might want to do something. So what would be your advice from your perspective that countries can do, that organizations can do, groups, and of course, individuals, as we have a lot of individuals tuning in today to hear your powerful story and your advice. What, from your perspective, do you think should be done?
I think the most important thing is to believe and listen, believe and trust in these people. If you if you listen to somebody, that's empathy. You give them empathy, love, compassion. And after listening to them, you see that they have also potential. But me, you, and somebody else, all over the world can unlock the potential of these people. They are counted out, but we can count them in. So that's why I brought you this kind of organization where say you can participate. The journey, we can take this journey together for empowering, support these people, and make sure that everybody will have access to education and empower them. And most importantly, my program, Mondiant Initiative, is bringing something special where every month I created a leadership training for refugee students. I want to make sure they are not only acquiring formal education, but also leadership skills. So every month I hire somebody to teach them, to train them about leadership. So altogether we can make a great impact among these people. That's the advice I can give to everybody who is on the call.
And you have a lot of gratitude pouring in as the comments I'm seeing it. It is so remarkable. And thank you so much for the inspiration and the empathy that you bring to this community and to our greater community as well. It's truly inspiring. I have another question for you, but I also just want to mention, I've raved about your book because as difficult as it is to read the words, and you shared with us part of why it is so hard. It is truly hard. You can't fathom in your mind some of what you experienced as a child. You just can't even go there. But as difficult as it is, it took so much courage, and it is being very well received. And I'm saying that from my own perspective, but forget that. The New York Times book review I also read, and they praised very highly your book. So congratulations for that as well. And you know, part of why they praised it is because yours is an important voice that all of us need to hear. And I know you are sharing your voice because I also recently read that Time magazine article that you contributed as well, that really shared and shed some light on the Afghan refugees. As this world, as you say, the world likes to call it the refugee crisis, but it's individual lives of people who are displaced to no fault of their own. So I truly thank you for that. And I just wanted to acknowledge the accolades that are pouring in, and for a very valid reason. So with all of that being said, what is next for you, Mondiant, as you continue this courageous journey, as you continue to inspire and share your strength with the communities where you lived and the rest of us as well?
I think the next for me is also to still make an impact. For me, I got lucky to be able to embrace who I was 4 years ago, because the story was completely different. So I embraced my past and make sure I move on to support people who are like the way I used to be. So I want to make sure I raise my voice to these voiceless people I left behind. A little bit story about me. I got lucky to meet President of Rwanda, Paul Kagame. So I was offered a citizenship. He said, Dogon, I want to give you citizenship. I said, President, that's amazing offer. I think that's something nobody can refuse. I can marry, I can get passport, I can do whatever, but are you giving citizenship to all people for Gihembe, Nyabiheke, everywhere? And the President Paul Kagame, I had a dinner, he looked at me and said, Dogon, you are amazing. We take a long process, but I can't promise, I can't guarantee that I want to give you citizenship, but for you, all the people, refugees in Rwanda, it might take a long process to say, thank you so much, President. So I think from that on, I say, I'm not speaking, I live in New York City. I was working before I started my nonprofit. I was making a really good salary at a tech startup company in New York City, make a really good salary, but I say, I don't want to make money. I don't want to make money when I'm not impacting people I left behind. So they have a high expectation from me. So for me, my role is to keep raising the voice these voiceless people and make sure the world and we all together, all human beings, welcome, empower, trust, and believe in these human beings. They're amazing. Thank you.
You're amazing. And thank you. And some of your points and some of your advice really resonate too. And I think it goes to the heart of the mission of Alight, where they acknowledge and respect the dignity of the people who are displaced and listen first and foremost before helping to offer services and collaborating to design those services. So I think that there is a natural synergy between what you say and what Alight does. And I think that's why we're all here together on this call, which is awfully beautiful. I just want to thank you again. I also want to make sure that we have an opportunity. We have one or two, but have time for one or two questions. So if there are any questions from any of you, something that we haven't covered at this point, I will share. I have many more questions for Mondiant. So if we don't hear any from the audience, that's okay, because we'll continue to represent. But if there are any specific points that you would like to share and that you'd like to hear more about from Mondiant, just make sure to let us know so that we make this time as valuable as possible for everyone. So, Mondiant, I do want to share a little bit more and learn a little bit more. Your family is going through, your extended family is going through a time of transition right now as well. Can you speak to what has happened recently with the Gihembe camp and what your understanding is of the future and the feelings of those who have been calling that place home?
Yeah, the refugee camp where I grew up and spent most of my life in, Gihembe, is now shutting down. So as I said, when you stay there for so long, when a refugee camp stay there for so long, sometimes they got shut down. So they're all moving them, the refugee camp, Gihembe, all people are being moved to another camp in east of the country in Mahama, which is very, very far from, it's a remote place. So it's really, people are very suffering. They can't imagine how they can, after living in refugee camp for 25 years, how come they can be moved to another refugee camp, staying there, being there. So it's something very sad. As people, because they knew I came to America for school, they believe that, I can make everything, I can reach out to everybody. So and every single day I receive a call from there. The executive committee from my fellow refugees, they said, Dogon, what can you do for us? Well, I said, sometimes I don't pick up the call because I knew that, I'm not able to do that. I can't help them. So this is something that also my people or the people left behind, that's something that is not easy for emotionally. They're very struggling. It's not easy to stay in one place for 25 years and move you from there to another refugee camp. It's not easy.
Oh, I can imagine. I can't imagine. It's what you're hearing from your extended family and what they're going through after already so much turmoil and difficulty to now be displaced yet again. I know we are getting now several questions. I want to go to Emmanuel. He has his hand up. A lot of the questions are coming in through the chat, and that is wonderful. We'll go ahead and read these. But Emmanuel, I believe, do you want to go ahead and ask yourself the question for Mondiant Dogon?
It's my pleasure to see Mondiant Dogon sharing with us this amazing story today. As someone who have shared same life story, same journey, same life experience, I'm really, really, really proud of Mondiant to get this chance of advocating. This is the right moment, and this is the best way to advocate for the people who don't have a voice around the world. The only question that I have for Mondiant today, I've learned from my community back home that actually the situation that they are going through is really worse. Normally a refugee should be instead of moving from one refugee camp to another refugee camp, should be reintegrated in the community where they spend more than 25 years, or they should be resettled in the countries that have opportunity or that have a heart to welcome refugees. So Mondia, what do you think and what are you planning as you keep advocating in different ways? What is your plan for this community who are desesperated now? That's my question. Thank you.
I think that's so thank you so much, Emmanuel. I knew Emmanuel since I was very young. So we've been known since we were very young. We've both been a teacher at Gihembe Secondary School. So we've known him for so long. Thank you so much for attending, my brother. So I think the way, as I said, I'm meeting a lot of media. I meet a lot of high profile people with the high, big personality people. I think the only way to advocate for them is to show them that, these people need at least a place where they can, they need a roof over their head. They need a place where they can say, this is my home. So that's what I'll be doing. I think I'm not a big fan of politics. Sometimes I don't want to go, I want to make sure I stay on track rather than, I still have people back home. I still have people everywhere. So, but what I do is just to speak up and say, this is the problem. So show the problem and make sure there are a lot of amazing people out there. I think everybody will step in and we will come through strong and together.
Yeah, stronger together. You're a big part of that, by the way. I know we have a couple more questions. I know Mary also asked a really powerful question in that I think a lot of us wonder how you persist, how you advocate and lead in this really important way, while you also must grieve at times for all that you witnessed at such a tender age. How do you balance that? What is the hope in doing your work? Is that what helps you to reconcile the pain that you experienced and that you witnessed?
Yeah, I think I use my past as a tool to help me move forward. For me, I use my past experience as a walking stick to weather the future. I don't allow my past to hold me back. No, that's why I say, I embrace who I am. I embrace who I was, and I knew why. I've been in refugee camp where I spent sometimes I didn't find food to eat. Sometimes I walked barefoot. I believed that after knowing yourself and I decided to commit to move forward, that's the only way to keep moving. Sometimes when I'm here in America, especially in New York, I see a lot of people like my coworker, they say, when it's 12, they say, let me grab lunch. I'm so hungry. And tomorrow morning, I saw them grab tea or coffee. And at 12, they say, I'm so hungry. Let me go grab lunch. So with all this, I see how people have different way, they grow up. So for me, if I take one meal in 2 or 3 days, that might be very kind of easy for me to say, if I take coffee, it's fine all day. I might maybe take lunch or dinner next day the following day. So I think something that helped me is that, if you grew up, if you live in war or violence for so many years, maybe you spent a year in a war or in violence. So you may be 5 or 6 years old. So when you spend that year, a year or 2 years or 6 months in the war, you become as wiser as somebody who is 25 years old. And it gives you the mentality and this kind of strength of quick adaptability. So for me, whenever I go, I have this, my past taught me how to adapt to any situation, and it gave me strength whenever I meet or encounter something, any kind of situation. I know, say, I've badly worse things in the past, and I made it. So even this one is going to be temporary. So that's the confidence, and also the past helps me to go through every situation. And that's why I kept moving through all the things I've been through.
Well, thank you for continuing to move like that. It's, again, very important what you are doing for our world. We have 2 more questions and then, okay, yes, we have 1 more question. Miles, I know you are patiently waiting. Can you please share your question as well?
Thank you so much for giving me this time. I really want to thank you, Mondia, for being an advocate to all the refugees globally. So I've been with Mondia since our childhood, and he was really a committed guy, a focused guy, disciplined guy. I'm not surprised by all his effort to put on end on his book and get published. So my question to Mondia, so what was your motivation? Being a refugee during that time, came in United States, meeting a different culture. How did you manage to move forward with new atmosphere, different culture, and keep sticking on your goals instead of diverting and go to another career, but still sticking on being advocate to refugees?
So thank you so much, Mugisha, for that question. I think that's a really cool question. So it was not easy for young men like me who spent most of his life in a refugee camp like Kembe and come to the city like New York City. It was not easy. I remember the first time people say, I came to the hotel in New York City, and at the beginning, before I went to JFK, so the weather was not good. The weather was so bad, so the airplane pumped. I was sitting with a young lady who on the same age. So when the airplane pumped, I hold tightly the chair. And he said, "Dude, what's happening to you?" I said, I'm so sorry, man." So for me, say, relax. She told me, relax. So with that it was my first time to board the plane. So, and I came to the city where when I went to the cafeteria at NYU, they say, "Are you taking burger?" I didn't know what the burger was. So, "Are you taking chicken wings?" And I expected people maybe to say also, "Are you taking chicken head?" If chicken has wings, it might also have a head. So it was really challenging. It was very challenging to see this new environment where or people they talk to here in America that people, there is maybe a known movie where people, if I say maybe Wakanda, everybody in America might have watched Wakanda, but home we didn't have a television. So how come could I watch a movie? So they told me, "Dogon, do you watch these movies?" So I pretended because I wanted them to accept into their society. So I tried to imitate or to pretend that sometimes I know things which I didn't know. So it took me a lot of effort. But I remember like a friend of mine, sometimes Friday or Sunday, we sometimes say, "Let's go to the bar or nightclub." As young people, it was normal. But for me, I say, I got sick today, and I make sure I stay there because I was struggling. My English was kind of broken. I was speaking French, and I had to work double than them or 3 times than them. So that kind of knowing myself helped me to navigate that kind of culture. I'm still learning a lot of things, but yeah, I'm in a good process of learning new things and keep going on the same track as the people around me and the people I met in America.
Well, you are helping us learn as well and learn lessons that everyone should try to learn for the sake of our hearts and for the sake of humanity and truly for the sake of the world. And I just want to say, Mondiant Dogon, you are again a true change maker. I thank you so much for this beautiful book that you have shared with us. I thank you for the trust to engage with us in this meaningful conversation today. It is truly an honor to talk with you, and congratulations again on bringing your voice to the world. It is so important. It's been an honor to talk with you.
So thank you so much. I want to encourage everybody. This is an amazing book, a great book. Please buy the book. And also I think Nadia and other people on the background of the event, I think they will share you the link. So let's work together, let's support each other, and let's invest in these amazing human beings back home. So thank you so much, Carla, for amazing. Carla, I knew Carla when I think I attended a gala in Minnesota in 2018. And I went also, I flew to Rwanda with Carla. So she's one of the nicest and great human being I've ever met. So thank you so much. And I want to say again, thank you to Alight for bringing these. This is the person I was looking for getting to somebody. This is the kind of person I want to interact with the audience and everybody on the call. So thank you so much, Alight.
Thank you. It is our honor. It is our pleasure. I echo him. Get this book. Honestly, it's beautiful. And you'll say I was among the first to get the book, especially when it becomes a movie, a documentary, anything, so that the world hears this voice. It's just gorgeous. Thank you again, Mondiant.
Thank you.
And I believe we're handing it off to Miss Nadia again.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Mondiant, for bravely sharing so much with us today, but also in this book. I'll just say it again to everybody, buy the book. Buy the book for everybody you know this holiday season. Just share this honest and raw truth. Mondiant, we stand in solidarity with you as you continue your journey and the humanitarian work that you're going to be leading. And thank you, Carla, for leading this conversation. I also want to thank everybody who is here today. If you would like to activate the important work that Mondiant's already begun, I hope you'll consider a donation to the Mondiant Initiative. I also want to thank everyone here who's already donated through the registration page for this event leading up to today. I think our team is going to be sharing the link in the chat. And then we're also going to be sharing the link for buying Mondiant's book, Those We Throw Away Are Diamonds. Thank you again so much for joining us and for your care and support for displaced communities around the world. Have a wonderful day.